Hi everybody, and welcome to the IntervYOUs. My name is Abby Miller, and this is a series where I interview different people about their personal experiences with body and self-image. Today, we have a very special guest. This is my mom, Amanda.
Hello.
She has been dealing and going through and battling like a warrior breast cancer since the end of October. And I thought it would be a great idea to just ask her about her experiences with it, what it's sort of done with her mental image, and how she's battled it. So, would you like to sort of tell a little bit more about yourself and what's been going on for the past couple months?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize to you because all these years you've been doing this and doing these interviews on camera, and I have been like, what's this big deal? Just get on there and do it. And you're always trying to get your questions and stuff together. And now that this is horrifying. I can't believe, I don't know how you do it. But anyway, well, yes, so thank you for doing this with me. But, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer in September. It was Labor Day weekend that I found, the week of Labor Day weekend that I found a lump and went through diagnostic testing, and that was a rough weekend. I'm sure you kids could tell something was going on.
Yeah. I remember seeing the pamphlet on the counter, and then I was like, I think something's kind of going on.
Yeah, and
I didn't know.
Right. Well, and I had a biopsy, and it was just very scary. I mean, I knew something was not right in my gut, but that was Labor Day weekend, and so it was actually the beginning of October that I started treatment, and then beginning of September that I was diagnosed. But I was diagnosed with stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma, and that basically means it's a tumor that's grown in your breast that's also it's moved outside of its original parameters, I guess is the best way to explain it. At the time, they didn't think it was in my lymph nodes, but they weren't sure, and they said they'd have to wait and see until they got the labs back, until they did surgery. And when the labs came back, it ended up that it was something called HER2 positive, which is a more aggressive form of breast cancer. And so during all my first tests at the doctors, found out that I was going to have kind of like the kitchen sink thrown at me. Everything that they have, the chemo and radiation and surgery, and there were a lot of what ifs and if thems, and nothing was complete. Nothing was just a set thing. So that was really hard to deal with. And I think the most difficult thing at first to deal with, I wasn't even really that worried about what my body was going to look like as much as I felt sort of embarrassed. I felt ashamed, which is so crazy. And I've told people this. I felt ashamed and embarrassed because it was like everybody was going to know that I had this thing going on with my boobs. Like they had failed me. My boobs failed. And I also, so then after that, I did feel this sense of, oh gosh, how is this gonna work? And I didn't want to be down for all these weeks for all these surgeries. And but the other thing I struggled with during the process of deciding what I was going to do for surgery, and that came a little bit later, because the first thing I had to go through was 4.5 months of chemotherapy. Yeah. And then I had my surgery, and I had to decide what I was going to do for that. And that brought up this whole other aspect of, well, and because we talked about this for weeks, of I didn't want to seem vain. I did not want to seem like I was, self-absorbed or vain if I used this as an opportunity to make sure I got the best result possible, I guess, with how my breasts were going to look when I was done.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we talked about it, and I guess in the full candor, a lot of women, they say that breasts are sisters, not twins. And I wasn't like exactly perfectly even. And so I was like, well, gosh, this is gonna make it even more that way. And I have the surgery, and I was worried about that. Anyway, long story short, my husband looked at me one day after I had been at the plastic surgeon talking to her about like what I wanted to do. And I had said, I just don't want to seem like I'm being vain. And he said, this woman's entire livelihood is vanity. Like the cosmetic aspect of things. So I came to terms with that eventually, but it's a very big picture that you deal with for a long time. And it's been a lot. And
I remember the thing that people would tell me the most whenever just like talking about everything that was going on with your breast cancer was that you were posting about it on Facebook a lot.
Mhm.
Like you kind of had your own personal blog.
Yeah.
And people really loved that because you were just being so transparent and open about it. Would you say that that was sort of a coping mechanism for you? Like, did that help with your mentality behind it, or
Yes.
or is it just to keep people informed?
It was both.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that you learn really fast when you have a cancer diagnosis is that it's just exhausting to talk to people, and it's wonderful because everybody loves you, and I have been so blessed with extreme support beyond anything I ever could have imagined. But explaining to everybody what's going on, and you know how you always say that thing about people remember how you make them feel,
not what you said. Really.
Yeah, so she always uses this phrase, people may not remember exactly what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I ascribe to that too, and I wanted people to feel appreciated and that they were important to me, and that I wanted them to know everything. But it's hard to give that level of emotion and transparency to every single person that you talk to every single time, at every step of the way. So I started a page on Facebook. Actually, no, my friend Nicole started it. She started a page on social media to help with meals, and I kind of springboarded off of that and started posting kind of a real, unvarnished version of what it's like to go through treatment. And I've told people about the parts of it that I struggled with, like the appearance issues and how I felt. And I haven't really talked a lot on there yet about the embarrassment and shame aspect of things, because I don't know, I haven't been able to figure out the words. Everybody says to me, that's ridiculous, you shouldn't feel that way. But it's almost like I don't love knowing that everybody's kind of looking at me like, oh, you've got this going on. Or are they gonna look at my chest every time they see me, or wonder like, oh, is she wearing this wig today, or
if
what?
They look at your chest when they first see you. I mean, if people didn't, I guess I understand where you're coming from in that regard, but nobody should really be looking at your chest upon first entering a room.
I know.
Regardless.
I know.
But I understand what you mean.
And I understand why because they're probably trying not to look, because they know that,
We're doing a bad job of it if they look at your boobs as an attempt to not to.
Yeah.
But at least from my perspective, and I know that other people saw it as this way too, it was not like when they saw you, it was this helpless thing, what you were describing. Mm-hmm. It was more of like she's a bad bleep. She's a cool girl. She's got this. She's strong. Nobody saw it as like this, there's Amanda. It's like, well, shoot, she's out here. Okay, hi. And everybody was so happy to see you at a winter workshop. Everybody was so excited.
Oh, you're meeting. Well, you know what, that is really, it is kind of a tears of a clown thing though, because one of my coping mechanisms is humor and just trying to be on top of things and proactive. It's like if I am on top of it and I'm outgoing and talking to everybody first, it won't be weird.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe this bad belief means I did a good job at trying to be that way. But I mean, it's a very vulnerable thing. And I was very self-conscious during all of it. I was just self-conscious of, you don't just lose your hair when you go through chemotherapy. You lose your eyebrows, you lose your eyelashes, you lose your armpit hair. That was awesome. You lose, leg hair did not grow. That was really good too. That was a good part. So, I mean, it's just you just look so different. I mean, and everything about you just are completely stripped bare is the best way to put it. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, I don't exactly know what you're going through, but I understand what you mean about being self-conscious about your looks. But what would you say that you did, other than humor? What was something that you did just in your mind to sort of combat that? I mean, obviously you can't make jokes in your mind. I mean, you can.
Well, okay, so again, that page, like I said, humor. I mean, I try to be, I mean, that is kind of like, it is sort of my internal narrative of how I think about things sometimes though. Like if I say something in a funny way, it is because I've sort of thought about it in that way when I'm going through it. But it was pretty cathartic to just get it all out there and share it with everybody and tell them exactly what to expect and what was going on, because maybe somebody can benefit from that down the line, you know, like learn from what I'm going through. And ultimately, one thing that was a pleasant surprise was that, you know, I did sort of give into the vanity aspect of things. And what I ended up having, it's called an oncoplastic reduction. Mastopexy, I think is the name of it. Essentially, it's a lumpectomy procedure with plastic surgery on the affected breast to kind of rearrange the tissue so it's shaped nicely and everything after they take out a big hunk. And then they go on the other side and they do the plastic surgery at the same time over there, so everything matches up and stuff. So, it's not an exact science because I had to have radiation, and radiation can shrink tissue sometimes. You're looking at my boobs.
No, your thing is
Oh,
that's
okay.
fine.
All right, sorry. So anyway, they reshape everything at that time. And it's a little challenging because the radiation can shrink your tissue, and so they have to try to kind of predict what one side might shrink from that. And anyway, you end up with sisters, not twins. However, like, I'm really liking my sisters. Like, it's good. That part's actually been like pleasant. I mean, there's a new phase though of the self-image and the body consciousness thing, which is you're dressing a whole new body. And so I feel weird in my clothes a lot of the time. Stuff doesn't fit me the way it used to. I don't know how to like dress these. I just feel self-conscious about that sometimes, that I don't know, like my proportions seem different. So but it's not a bad thing, but it is a self-consciousness issue.
It's a thing. Mm-hmm. What would you say like the hardest part? You were talking about a lot of different stuff, but what was the one thing that it just seemed to be the worst part about all of it and just the whole process?
The not knowing.
Yeah. That was scary for us too.
Yeah. You cannot. I was just having a conversation with a friend the other day whose husband was recently diagnosed with cancer, and you know, you hear statistics and the doctor talks to you, and sometimes you have these flashes of, you read stuff that isn't the most positive outcome necessarily. And you might be in that group, and you know, all you can do is listen to what the doctor has told you. And I'm blessed, my doctor has said that he expects us to eventually end up considered, cured. But I mean, that the statistics that are out there and the things that happen are real, and you cannot allow yourself to live in that place. You cannot allow yourself to live in the what if. And I had to give myself over to the process of not knowing exactly how things were going to pan out, the exact plan. I'm totally a control freak type A, as you know. And so that's really hard for me. That was hard. The giving over to the process.
I think that was hard for the rest of us too. Like I said, like people would ask me, you know, how's your mom doing? What's going on? Do we know anything? And I would have to be like, I don't. I mean, I know the general stuff that you probably know, but I don't. We're still waiting, and this and that, and that was just always. That was also the worst part, was just not knowing, especially like the first day when I came home from school, because I still remember the day that I found out. I came home from school, and then you were wearing I don't know why I remember this purple shirt, and you were laying on the couch with Dad, and I saw the folder on the counter again, and I was like, what is this? Why did you go get tests or something, or do I have to go get tests? And then Dad was like, your mother has breast cancer and we don't know what's going on. And I was like, well, I need to know what's going on, because it was scary. I don't know much about how Grant feels, because Grant sort of just keeps to himself a lot, but I know that I can say that for the both of us, it was scary, the not knowing part.
Grant is my
Grant's
son.
my brother.
Well, yeah, and you cried.
Oh yeah.
And you, Grant, my son, is more pragmatic, because the minute he heard from us that the doctor, felt like it was treatable and that kind of thing, he is sort of like, well, it's fine, it's cool, it's cool, there's no problem. But Abby is a lot more sort of, I think, internalized a lot of it, the worry. So what I want to know, how did watching what I was going through, like with the surgery and the changes in my body and my appearance with my hair and all that stuff, like how did that affect you?
It was hard. I mean, so I've never seen you without a cap on or without a wig on, and that was a personal choice just because you didn't feel comfortable showing it with us. But I remember like the day that you came downstairs for the first time. Sorry, that's our dog. If you hear that. I remember you coming downstairs with the cap on the first time, and I was like, oh, this is like really happening. Because I don't think it really processed I don't know why, but a part of me it hadn't really fully registered in my mind just the extent of what was to come. And so seeing you without, all of your hair for the first time, that was definitely like a whoa moment. And not in a bad way, but just in a, this is absolutely real. And I didn't make it up in my head. But the hardest part, not even just for my sake, but for yours, has just been seeing there will be moments when you don't even realize it, but your face will change. You'll look in the mirror and I'll see your face just drop. And those will be moments where it makes me so sad, because personally, the way that I view you in my young eyes is a very strong she-woman. And every time you look in the mirror, it makes me so sad that you don't think that you're beautiful, because it's like, that's the coolest thing in the world, that you're able to overcome something as hard as breast cancer. And I don't know, that's been the hardest part, is just seeing those moments of you viewing yourself in a negative light, because I know that like just everybody that I talk to sees the exact opposite of what you're seeing. And just, that's been the worst part. I almost did.
I remember that day, because you looked at me and you just said, Mom, and I think that you just sort of didn't know what to do. And that was hard, because I was starting to lose it was just coming out, and I was like, I can't do this. So I just went and shaved it.
I would have shaved my head in solidarity, but I think you would have slapped me if I did that.
But that was hard. And that was like, I was very nervous for everybody to see me like that for the first time. And I don't know that I hate to hear that you saw me. I tried not to be that way, because I don't want to have that be the presentation. I don't want you to see me. I'm trying to set an example of how to go through this, and obviously I don't ever want you to go through this, but I don't want you to see me that way, as thinking that I am less than. But the truth is, when you look in the mirror and you just don't recognize what you see,
you can't help it.
It's hard. It's a real, like I said, it completely strips you bare. It brings you down, and that's a hard thing. So I'm sorry that you had to see that. But
that's not an apology. It just made me sad for you, because I was like, well, I don't know why she's viewing herself this way. It's such a not cool thing to have cancer, but to say that you conquered cancer with such just vibrance and like full of life, even though cancer quite literally like can take life out of you, is pretty amazing. And pardon the Gen Z lingo, but it's a pretty big flex on your end that you can definitely flaunt. So I don't know, that was just the hardest part for me. And then of course, like the moments where you would come home and you would feel sick, or you would just not be feeling well, and seeing you up in bed, of course, sometimes would be hard just because you would look so tired. But none of that just compared to like seeing your face whenever I could tell that you just weren't liking what you saw. Just because I felt so differently, and I thought it was beautiful. So I don't know, that's just my personal.
Well, and I tried to do what you say to do. I mean, like your U-turns, where you talk about, like, I tried to look in the mirror in those times and say, okay, you may not be liking this right now, but this is not permanent, and you've gotten through 3 treatments or 4 treatments, and so I tried to turn it around and to reframe it and look at it that way. And sometimes I would just kind of stop, because again, you just have to give yourself over to it. So what is that, an offering? That's an offering, I guess. But I mean, the why, I knew why I was feeling like that.
You really had to ask yourself
that. There was no question about that. But I did sometimes, and sometimes you just don't have the energy. Yeah, I mean, that's when you're going through that. But you're right. I mean, it was difficult, but I hope that generally speaking, I like you said, presented an example to you that
No.
was positive ultimately. But it is not, breast cancer is not for babies. And you just have to prepare yourself to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm trying to be patient with that process of coming back. And I'm still in treatment. I'll be in treatment for like forever. I'll be in infusions until January, and then I'll be on a kind of drug called an aromatase inhibitor for at least 5 years, I think is what it will be. And that also causes some issues too, because basically to take this kind of drug that's supposed to be the best thing for my kind of cancer, it puts you into forced menopause. And I wasn't in menopause before I was diagnosed. And not that, I have to have a period to identify and everything as female, but feminine or whatever. But that is also something that kind of messes with your mind, because even though your dad and I didn't plan on having more kids, the factory is shut down.
Yeah, you're not.
That's not, that's done, that part of my life is done. And that's kind of tough too, as a woman. I mean, to kind of come to that place of, oh gosh. So that has kind of messed with me a little bit and has caused me to kind of have to take a step back sometimes. And I don't love that part of it, but it's part of the process. And I'm blessed that they have the drugs that'll treat me for it. But there's just everything about you changes.
Yeah.
And so the self-image thing, but I am also trying to ultimately on the other end of it come out with a more positive self-image than I had when I went in, because if I can get through this,
You can get through anything.
I can get through anything. So what's that phrase? The comeback is always greater. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. That is it.
That's what's up.
So
That's what's up.
that's what I'm trying to have my comeback.
Do you have any other things you want to say? I don't know. Do you want to wrap it up, or do you have anything? I don't know if I have any more questions. I feel like you kind of answered the majority of things that I had.
Did you change anything about your self-image and how you felt about yourself in watching the process?
Well, it wasn't like, what do you mean?
Well,
I wasn't like, well.
no, I know, but I mean, did it make you have any kind of, did it make you regroup at all and look at like, what do I have to have? What does it mean to be a woman? What would this be like to have that part of my body change so drastically?
Well, okay. I don't really have much to my disposal in the first place.
Stop.
So really, I was actually thinking about this like early on. I was like, would it really be much different than it is now in terms of just what I would go through if I did have to get a surgery like that? And then my brain was like, well, one's kind of already gone through that. So I was like, it's not that bad. And I kind of learned to appreciate my smaller area a lot more. I used to be, and I still sometimes am, of course, but I used to be a lot, like, very self-conscious because I felt like I wasn't actually, I wasn't becoming a woman like all my friends because, puberty and things like that. And I was like, well, why are they so slow? But I guess seeing kind of what you went through and, having something happen in that regard and putting them at like literally risking just everything in terms of having them maybe potentially removed. Luckily you had the option to not do that, but not every woman is.
Right. Sometimes
they have to have a full mastectomy.
Right.
I said maybe it's time to fully embrace myself and join the Itty Bitty Titty Committee. So maybe I should. Sorry. But it's true. And, boys, maybe this isn't the episode for you. But it's true. And I'm glad that I've learned to sort of embrace them more, and I've sort of looked at them in a new light. They allow me to dance comfortably. They allow me to run comfortably. They, they are there. And they're never painful, and they work. So that's what matters. But the biggest thing that you taught me in terms of self-confidence watching you is that just embracing it and moving on, it brings so much light into a room. Just like your ability to just say, well, this is how I look and that's it. And I understand it wasn't always easy.
Yeah.
but just seeing you be as bright as you are and just looking like you fully embraced how you look and what you're going through, it's very inspiring to me, because sometimes I feel very self-conscious, not just about this, but just about my whole body in general. But if you're able to go through this and still look in the mirror and still conquer things and think of yourself in a more humorous way and find positive spins on things, maybe I can definitely do that. And I'm not even going through I have not even gone through what you have gone through.
Well, thanks.
No problem.
I don't know how you do that much better than that at this point. So I'm trying to wrap up.
I guess. I don't know. This has been another interview, the Amanda and Abby edition. I am so glad that you stuck around. Thanks for coming on here.
Thank you.
I mean, it wasn't much of a trip, but
no.
Thanks for being here. And I will see you in the next interview. I'm gonna look for some more people to interview soon. I have a couple of ideas, so I'm going to try to produce as many interviews as I can this summer. So stay tuned for that. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and bye. Bye.